Hi, it's Christine. Welcome to part three. This section is entitled Manage Your Business, and here we're going to discuss actually running the business side of a fish breeding business. Finally, at step three, managing your business. That was the whole point of all of this, so I guess I had a lot more to say about breeding than I realized. Um, no, that's not me. I think you guys can see me in the corner. Um, that is not past me. That is an AI generated image. You can hate on me if you want, but I like AI. So you want to manage your business. So as a business owner, you're going to need to have a business license. Um, the IRS says that if you make more than, I think it's $1,200 in a year, it is no longer a hobby. It is a business, and therefore you have to be taxed on it. And that's not $1,200, where you sold a couple things off of Marketplace and where they don't count, or and then but then you sold like $900 worth of fish or whatever. It is all of it. Any money that you bring in that is not part of your regular income counts towards that. So there's a couple different business licenses you could have. You can have a sole proprietorship or an LLC. A sole proprietorship has some benefits to it, as far as like you don't have to file your taxes separately for your income tax, but you do need to still file your business taxes separately. Where an LLC, though, is its own individual legal entity, and so but the good thing about an LLC is you're not putting your household finances at risk if you get sued or something that happens, where you become financially responsible for said business. So research both, determine which one is better for you. And then, you can always talk to somebody too. You can talk to your attorney, you can talk to an accountant, do your research to learn really about these different business license types. Don't just go, oh, hey, click and be done. Really look into it. Um, in your city, you may also have to have a city business license. So you'll be looking at adding additional endorsements onto your business license, which are things like the city license. It may be in your state that you're required to have a certain kind of uh, operational license, being that you're going to be breeding fish. You need to look into that. It is not an easy find though. So talk to talk to store owners, talk to other breeders, find out what they've done. And but the store owners are actually going to be the best to talk to on that. Um, so I got an EIN, employee identification number, because of the fact that I wanted to be able to sell on a specific site, and I don't remember which one it is now. And they required an EIN. And so I got one, and now I don't know what to do with it. So, because I'm not going to ever hire employees. If you do hire employees, you have to adjust that with your state, or you may. I know in Washington State you do. So, um, and then learn how to file your business taxes. I'll tell you that when I was filing the first time, I was very confused. I did not fully understand what I needed to do, but most of my sales were out of state eBay sales. So I really didn't have to, other than you know, I didn't have a lot of, well, this is what was in Washington State, so I'm being taxed here. I don't even think I paid anything. I think it was zero, is what it ended up being. But this year, because I tripled the amount of income that well, when I say income, amount of sales that I had the previous year, it was a lot more complicated. And a portion of my sales were here in Washington State. A portion were through a marketplace facilitator, eBay. A portion of them were through my website. So, it's just like there was having to figure out how to properly do it, and the website isn't very forthcoming with that. I ended up getting on YouTube and I watched this kid trying to teach how to do taxes here. He was here in Washington State, and he was not a very good YouTuber. So, but he gave me the information I needed, and even though it was obvious to me that he wasn't very experienced in technology, which is okay too. I'm not trying to diss on any of you guys that are not technology people. I'm only half technology. I used to be full technology, and then I ended up not being able to stay on top of all the things that were changing. And so I used to consider myself a technical person. I don't anymore. Um, so another thing you may want to consider is a resale certificate, especially if you're going to be buying product and then reselling it, not livestock. Well, if you are if you buy livestock from a wholesaler and then sell that exact fish, then that would be able to be used with a resale certificate. But if you buy a fish to make more fish, those more fish cannot be used. You'll still have to pay taxes on that original fish. You're also it's considered as a wholesale license as well, so you can purchase wholesale. I learned that recently. I thought that was really interesting. Um, you need to figure out how you're going to keep track of your expenses, your income, research some programs. I use the Intuit program. Um, the It does come with a monthly fee. It's $30. It's, for the basic one, it's a little pricey. But I found that trying to do it with spreadsheets, it wasn't as easy as their program makes it, because you could just enter data, pull reports, keep customer information, all that. And it's more detailed of the data than what is available within my website, within the provider for my website. So, um, and then how will you keep track of sales tax too? My biggest, hugest, big ever recommendation is that when you sell something that requires sales tax, take that money for the sales tax, put it in a different bank account. The reason being is that you will start to lose track of what money is company money versus what money is sales tax. So put it into a different bank account, let it sit there, and then when it's time to pay your taxes, whether you're set to do monthly, quarterly, or annually, then you would go ahead and pay it out of that account rather than paying it out of your account for your expenses and your money coming in. Now, if you want to be fancy, if you're really, really, involved in all this, you could have three bank accounts: one for taxes, one for expenses going out, and one for money coming in. But that sounds way too complicated to me. I have my one checking account. I don't have a account for my sales tax yet, but what I do is, because I'm a sole proprietor, I actually take that sales tax and put it on to my savings account with it, which is with a different financial institution, and I keep track of it there. And so then that way I know it's in my savings account. I can just pull it out when it's tax time. And since most of my sales are e-commerce, I have very little sales tax that I pay. Um, so then, like I mentioned, I actually have on here, get a separate bank account, record your cash sales. So you think, oh, well, it's cash sale. I don't need to pay taxes. It's all good. But now you've lost that information of that sale. So you don't really truly know how much you sold if you're not keeping track of your cash sales. And also, you should pay taxes on it, because by paying the sales tax on those sales, you're actually helping to improve your economy in your local area, not just the commerce. So, it helps to improve your, different things like the schools, well, property taxes for schools, but it's just the things that your area covers, the sales tax covers, it helps to improve your general area and those around you. So, I know it's nice to not have to charge the sales tax. Makes it easy. Never pocket the sales tax ever. That is actually against the law, and you can get in a lot of trouble for that. But just charge the sales tax, and if it makes you feel better, you can say, okay, well, it's 22.99 or whatever for their sale, and then you or $23, but 99 cents worth is the actual taxes. You have it in your system as being $22.01, and then you have taken those 99 cents, and you're still paying that sales tax. So, so that's it, it's important. Just, be sure to be clear with the customer and say, "Oh yeah, I roll the sales tax price in," so that it's easy to do the math. I mean, that's anyways my suggestion. I don't know if that's legally the correct way to do it, but so do your research, make sure that's okay. I'm probably going to get told that that's not okay. So, and then I will edit this video and say I'm wrong down at the bottom. Um, Set your personal boundaries. So it's important that, you spend time with your family, you spend your personal time, you spend time doing things that you enjoy. If you have people blowing up your phone all the time, at all hours, because especially if you do e-commerce, some people may message you really early in the morning, or you may be messaging them late. So be mindful of where they're located. Um, it just you have to set that boundary, put turn your phone ringer off at night, have a separate phone number. You can get digital phone numbers through Google or other websites. So then that way that they're only contacting that number. Don't have a phone number, just only be able to be contacted through email and social media, whatever you need to do. If you're not equipped to have a store in your home, or maybe your area doesn't allow it, don't bring them to your house, or if you don't want anybody to know where you live, don't bring them to your house. Meet them somewhere, have a same place that you always meet. Just don't try and make it up every time. Like, for example, I always do other pet stores. Whatever that pet store is that's local to that person or wherever we're going to meet, that's what I pick is the pet store. So, because everybody knows where the pet store is. All right. Um, so budgeting. So you kind of have to figure out, well, how much is my tank going to net me? And how much is it going to cost me? And you need to have this all figured out before you even hatch that first egg. Some of it you may not know though. So, I like to use the $40 in your pocket rule. The number is arbitrary, but you kind of have to guesstimate your first time around. And then as things progress, then you can say, okay, no, this is actually what it costs for me to run this tank for a year. So how I work it is that, you want to start small. You want to figure out whether you're doing that single aquarium or you're doing 3 aquariums, multiple ones for that one single breeding project. And you say, okay, to rent the space for this project, it costs me $1 for a year to do that per tank, right? So, like in this example here, I say, okay, now you've spent $3 for the rental of that tank, that location. And then, what you're really paying for is you're paying for the space, but the actual money, it's not really actual money, it's mental money. it, it's the only way I can describe it. So your cost of equipment. So, each month you have to, uh, pay for food, you have to pay for maintenance and, things like that. So let's say for equipment and maintenance, you figure out that it costs $1 per tank for a year. So in this example here, I have, that means that you're paying $12 per tank um, to oh wait, hang on a second. So yeah, you're paying $12 per tank for the year. So things you can do to mitigate that is that you could say, okay, well, when I am not using this tank, like say your 10 gallon, because the fish have already grown out to their next tank, I'm just going to shut it down rather than start another batch of them because the amount of time that those fish that are going to be in that grow out tank is going to be longer than those fish are in the first or tank or the first two tanks. So you need to keep that in mind too before you even start your second breeding project. Is that your timing of growth and when they can go ahead and go to their forever homes. So, so let's say three tanks, um, and times 12, that's 12, 24, $36. But we're only going to figure one tank in this example, so that you've now spent $15. Now the cost of livestock, okay, each fish costs you $1. And so now you have a trio. So that's a per breeding cycle, let's figure $1, for well, $3 per breeding cycle, so that's six fish. Now we are at $21. And then medicine, it costs you $1 per tank, so now we're at 24. You kind of see where we're going with this. The breeding tank reserves money. Always keep money aside in case the fish dies, because then that like stops your breeding cycle if you don't have enough fish to cover that already, or you don't have the money to be able to replace that fish. So then cost of utility. Well, how much does it cost to run power and water and and things like that? Those are things that you're going to have to guesstimate the first year. But pay attention to it when you are paying your bills. Go, okay, well, last year my power was this at this time of the month, and now it's this, so I have an increase of this. And then that increase amount, you take all that and then you divide it by however many tanks you're running, and then that will be your annual amount per tank. So now you want to plan your income. How much are you going to charge on that fish, right? Because even though it's going to cost you $39 to run that tank for to run those tanks for a year, for two breeding cycles, you still need to figure out how much to charge. A lot of people struggle with this. I struggled with it too. I still do. Um, I end up breaking even or even going less than, because a lot of times I'm just more about, let's get the fish out so we can go ahead and put a new fish in and continue to learn, where I'm not at that point where I'm really truly trying to make a profit yet. I am in the negative, I am in the red, but that's okay, because it's not like the same thing when I first started where I was buying all the things. So you want to figure out, okay, well, it cost me $39 to run this tank. And then, I want to be able to buy another breeding project. So I'm going to go ahead and double that. So now I have $78 that I need to earn. And then I also want to make some profit, but I also want to cover any losses. So I'm going to actually triple that. And that's a good way to kind of cover yourself, of how much that you need to earn on that tank. Now, so that's $119 in this example of how much you need to have. That's it's going to cost you for an annual expense. Well, then what you're going to do from there is say, okay, well, let's research this fish. How much does, the high point, like we'll use Dan's fish as an example. They charge a lot more for their fish, but yet they have quality fish. They have, doctors on site. It's just like when you get a fish from Dan's Fish, the likeliness of that fish being sick is very, very small. But then you have your, fish from Petco, which is $1. So, it's just like, so you have to look at that range of this is, what that fish can cost. And then based off of what your ability is, you determine how much of a you want to charge for that fish. So for per breeding cycle, you want to do 30 to 60 fish for somewhere in a range of $1 to $2 each. Now, $1 is your low point, $2 is your high point. Uh, can you actually charge $2? Let's say, sorry, I'm using the Dan's fish example again. Can you actually charge $2 for that fish? Well, maybe you might get some buyers. a dollar are you going too cheap? That's where you're absolutely, that's your bottom line, right? If you find a happy medium in between, you can have enough space to be able to offer sales too. So let's say that a dollar will be is your, bottom line, but you sell it for $1.50, you could do a reduction of 50 cents for sales. So now we would need to determine how many fish can you actually, your actual um, max output is. And so, and how you're going to be managing that with your maintenance schedule. So if you determine that, okay, my tank can handle 40 fish per breeding cycle, and this is not the little tanks. So we're talking about the tanks that your grow out takes, and that you could do that every 6 months. That's 80 fish. Well, now you need to do the math to figure out, well, do those, how much can I get for each of those fish based off of what my expenses are? And that's where, again, we'll use the example of $1.50 because I made up the math, so it made it real easy. So you now know that you can sell that fish at minimum $1.50 per fish, or you need to increase your output, which means that you have to, because your tank is only able to handle 40 at a time, you're not going to make anything this year and possibly not be able to have money for your profit and loss. So that way you can get that secondary tank. So then the next year you'll be able to have that profit. Hopefully this makes sense. Um, I'm sure that there's a much simpler way to say this and do this. I always have a tendency to go way around and around and around down the park through the bushes, and before I come back to where somebody had already figured it out 2 seconds after it was set. So, and had a much better way to explain it. So yeah. So anyway, so the other thing to look at is your cost of doing business. There's more than just breeding fish as far as your expenses. You're looking at marketing, e-commerce. Some e-commerce sites charge a fee. Like if you want to have a store on eBay, it's $5, I think it is, and then they charge 14% per transaction. Plus, they have a transaction fee. There's other ones that don't charge a per transaction fee, only charge a monthly fee, things like that. You also have to look at, okay, well, what are the credit card transaction fees? You accept a credit card payment, you have to pay a percentage to the credit card servicer. I think that's the right word. Um, so, if you're shipping packing materials, you have to reserve some, not just for sales tax, but you have your excise tax too. And we haven't even talked about excise tax yet. So, how are you going to do your invoicing? Are you paying for a service like Intuit, where you have to consider you're paying $40 a month for that? Um, Refunds to customers, missing shipments, shipping fees, all of those things you have to take into consideration and have some kind of buffer when you are trying to figure out how much you're going to charge for those fish. And you have to look at that as part of the cost of that fish. When you're first starting out, look at free options. There's Craigslist, there's Aqua Bid, there's on Reddit, there's Aqua Swap, there's the Band app, there's Aqua Finder, which is a new e-commerce site for selling fish. There's other social media that there have ways to work around their rules to make it so you can sell fish. There is through your clubs, you have to look at those creative ways. You don't have to have all of the print material right off the bat. You don't have to have the fancy business card and the fancy stickers and the fancy flyers. And I'm saying this from experience because I spent a lot of money, but people really enjoy when they get my packages, like for their snails, it has a little sticker that says snail mail on it. Now, they enjoy that. They get a little toy with the snails, because I started off with snails. That's why I had those. But I don't have anything like that for fish because I realized that the expense of doing that was not where I was at that point. later on, I'd like to do that. I'd like to design my own stickers, have my own stickers print. I have various ideas. I'd like to sell some of my stickers. I'm an artist. So, I'd like to be able to have those kind of things available up on my website as well. All right, so let's talk about taxes. So you have excise tax and you have sales tax. So excise tax is actually this tax that you pay to your state, your city, your municipality for you to be able to be a business within that location. And it is based off of the amount of sales that you generate. Then you have your sales tax. The sales tax is the percentage of the amount of goods that you sell per this transaction. And so you collect that on behalf of the government. It is not your money. Remember, it is not your money. If you use a service that collects that and then pays it, make sure that you are aware of the workflow on how that is going. Where is your money going? It is your responsibility to stay on top of making sure that your taxes are paid properly. All right, so here's some best practices about net. That's the money coming in. Um, do not spend your income. Don't sit there and go, I just made 15 bucks off of this order, so I'm going to buy a new fish. You will get to that point where you can, but when you're first starting out, put it away, reinvest it into the fish company, your breeding company. Pay some of the whatever you're in the red for, things like that. Don't just go, oh, hey, look, now I have money to buy a fish. I made that mistake. I still make that mistake, to be honest with you. But I'm going to tell you, do as I say, don't do as I do. Do not take out any loans. The credit card thing was a huge mistake for me. I should not have done that. Taking out loans, credit cards puts you immediately in debt. You also have to include the interest of having those loans or credit cards. And that even though you have money coming in, you still need to pay a portion of that to that loan or debt. It is better off that you start off small, start off with money that you've saved up to be able to do what you need to do. And then you are now your investor and you've invested into that first breeding um, setup. And then now that tank is your investor and it invests into the next breeding setup, and so forth until you've run out of room and you've got all the projects and you're losing your hair. Um, yeah, I already said do not buy the shiny stuff. Well, even though you see that cool looking fish or you want to get that brand new thing that supplier had just recently released, and it's just like, oh, hey, you want to upgrade to an FX8, blah, blah, whatever um, filter, if it's not needed, don't purchase it until it is something that is needed and set goals for yourself. So let's say that you do want to upgrade to that canister filter. Say, okay, well, I'm going to take after the end of the year, I'm going to take this portion of my profit and my loss for my profit portion, and I am going to take that and put that aside for the canister filter or for new fish or whatever. Um, if you want to change your breeding project to a new fish, say, okay, well, I need to figure out what I'm going to do with my existing originals or my F1s or F2s, whatever I have. And so you're either going to give those away, sell them, put them into a display tank, make decisions on if that money is coming from those tanks from the business or if those and they're included in the business or are those personal. So just do not combine your monies. Keep it separate. It gets a lot less confusing, and then you'll not have paid as much as you will not have suddenly a credit card bill that makes your heart start to anyway, weird sound. Probably going to edit that out, but makes your heart start to, spasm on you. Okay, next thing. Let's talk about marketing. So there's different ways to market. We hit a few of the free ones. You can do a website, a sales portal. There's various ISPs that offer some kind of website templates that you can set up storefronts with, shop. There's a few others I don't know the names off the top of my head. Research it, see which one offers the services that you want, the payment fees that are acceptable to you, and then also see if you can find some people that use it and get their feedback because they may not have all the capabilities that you want to have. Um, how are you going to accept payments? Are you going to do PayPal? Are you going to do Venmo? Are you going to do Cash App? Are you going to just do strictly through your website, or are you just strictly cash? Just figure that all out. What are your sales channels? Are you just going to be strictly eBay, Shop, Etsy, Aquafinder? It's just how are you going to sell it? Now, I'll tell you that being that I'm on eBay, that I sell on Facebook, but you didn't hear me say that. That I have an account on Aquafinder that I've done one sale for so far, and I think I failed miserably with that sale. Um, that I also go on to Aquaswap on Reddit. I sell locally. I try and include myself in the auctions when they're not during Girl Scout cookie season, things like that. It sometimes gets hard for me to keep track of which channel is. So I have a specific email address that I have set up just for my orders coming in. So then that way, because I only ship on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, that way I can say, okay, on Sunday, when I'm prepping all my orders and getting them ready, I am going through and checking them off essentially through my emails. And once they go out, I delete those emails from my inbox because I no longer have that as an outstanding order. So that's how I am able to keep track of my orders. Just find a way that works for you. I'm going to touch on shipping real quick here. Like I said, I ship on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. Um, Determine what shipping provider you're going to be using and shop around to see if that you can find websites that will do discounted shipping because you're part of their account per se. However, read their terms and conditions because not all of them will have will include livestock as part of the insurance. So just kind of do your research there. When I am setting everything up Sunday for packing, I'm getting all my boxes ready. I'm getting everything ready. I have the fish that I'm going to bag up all set and ready, but I still have them in water, not in a bag, because I don't want to add that extra day. That morning, I wake up a little earlier and I bag it all up. I seal up boxes, and hopefully my husband is off that day, and he takes them to the UPS store for me. Or if it's a day where I have to go into the office, then I go on my lunch break and I drop them off at UPS. So um, kind of have to plan that out. If you're doing overnight shipping, you don't want to ship on Thursdays for a Friday delivery because if it's delayed, then it's not going to arrive till Monday. So keep that in mind and keep holidays in mind. We talked about print materials, so I'm not going to touch too much on that, but just kind of try and slowly budget it out. Don't try and do all the things all at once. Now, delivery of product, we actually did just talk about that. I forgot that was on the list. And determine who your customers are going to be. Are you going to sell to hobbyists? Are you going to sell to retail stores? Are you going to sell to wholesalers? Determine what are you going to do? Are you going to do all the things? And that's okay too. You just have to figure out how you're going to do it and plan it out because finding customers is hard and it takes a lot of effort and it is not something that you are going to make a lot of money from. It is what it is. You just got to put yourself out there. I'm not a salesperson and I've got a slide on this, so give me a second. But first, before we talk about sales, I want to talk about your ethos. Your ethos is your ethics. And it's, how you define yourself as a person, as a business person, as a fish breeder, as a hobbyist. And so you want to define that, but you also need to define your company ethos. So, you want to figure out what your DOA policy is, your return policy, figure out what your and delivery policy are. If you have to reship it, are you going to charge them for the shipping fees? Stick to these policies. Don't be all over the place because then it gets really confusing. And then suddenly it's that same customer that's been a repeat customer. You've done it 4 different ways with them, and they don't think you have everything all together, and they no longer are your customer. Define your coupon and refund policy. Say, okay, I am going to provide coupons during this time of year, or I'm not going to provide coupons at all, or this is how I'm doing my refunds. I'll do it as a store credit, or I'll actually give you the money. Figure all those things out. Um, I put this one as a funny, but it's not really meant as a funny because it does happen. Define how you're going to handle people that come at you, and how are you going to respond to them. Like customer service is big for me. Most of my jobs throughout my life have been some kind of customer service, or some kind of where I'm providing some kind of service, or I'm doing something for somebody, and it's having knowing that customer service isn't just about being nice. It is also looking at it from the perspective of the customer is very important. And but also realizing though that you are a business and you can't give them all the things. And there's a point where you have to say, while I understand your concerns, and I understand that this is not how you expected it to be, this is not how I handle these kind of situations, and this is what I will do for you. And then show them the other way that you'll go above and beyond that isn't completely putting your company out. Find creative solutions with them. Don't just be like, no, sorry, no refunds, or just uh, don't be a hard ass. I mean, it's be understanding that they're just trying to solve a problem that they've now encountered, and you, depending on how you present it back to them, will, even if you screwed up, will be their impression of you. And that impression is really important when you are a business owner and you're trying to sell a product. Um, so my next slide is about sales. And I'm going to tell you, I am not a salesperson. I I am not the person to talk to about sales. I end up becoming friendly with people. I bend over backwards, and I give too much, and I make no profit. That's me. It's something I need to work on. But just remember, sales are hard, and it's hard to put yourself out there. And it's hard, really hard when you get rejected. Don't take it personally. Just remain faithful to your ethos, and it'll help you because that integrity is what people remember most. And then stay strong, learn from others. Josiah with 10-gallon fish tanks, he's amazing. I mean, I'm not going to gush too much about him, but he's very easy to talk to, but he does have that sales mentality too, and where he is convincing you of something, but he's not going to convince you of something that's bad for you. He's helping you to see the benefits. And he put together this great document about how to sell, fish, and it's amazing. And I hope in no way I'm, crossing over lines with him or anything like that by doing this presentation, because that's not my intention at all. In truth, I want him to be successful. I want him to be more successful so I can learn from him. So another thing that, and I actually do this in my day job with things that I'm learning. I don't know what the fee would be for utilizing a website like this, but I'm just going to recommend it and you find what works for you. But LinkedIn Learning is a great resource. They have tons of seminars and videos and things on there of people in various industries, from tech industry to photography to, personal, uh, uh, what do you call that? Counseling, not counseling, that's not the right word I'm looking for, but, personal growth and, um, just find those things that kind of help you, that you resonate with. There was a guy came across on YouTube, and like one of the things I suffer from is anxiety. My anxiety uh, has has to do mainly with people, not necessarily actions or things, but it's mainly people and the impression of the people, what they're going to think of me. And so what ends up happening is I get stuck in my head about certain scenarios. I suddenly come up with all the things that are the worst case scenarios. And in truth, it is not in any way how I perceive. I've gotten better about being open with people about it and saying, hey, this is what I'm dealing with. And, and I really appreciate it when people are truthful, because even if it's going to hurt and I'm thin skinned, I want to know. And so then that way I can improve and or make reparations for whatever I did to you. So that's the thing about me. But this guy on YouTube, he was talking all about anxiety and, and self-confidence, and that's another thing that, in 52 years I've never figured out, and so it's really nice to find that there's tons of those kind of resources out there. Look into it is kind of my point. So want to thank you very much for sticking with me for 2 hours, 1 minute, and 18, 19, 20 seconds. Here's my website. Here's my email address. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Always happy to discuss anything pretty much about the fish business. And just know I'm still learning, just like you. All right. Have a good day.